Hey storyteller, fear plays a vital role in every story, no matter the genre. But wait, what if you don't write horror or thrillers? Surely a cozy mystery or historical romance doesn't need fear, right? Well, not exactly. Welcome to this week's writer coaching session, where we'll discuss why that is, and I'll share tips on how to determine your protagonist's greatest fear, how to use it to ramp up your story, and how to write those scenes in a way that will help readers feel the fear with your character. Hi, I'm Bridget from B Squared Writer Coaching. I'm an author, editor, and your story coach, here to help you make your story powerful, polished, and publishable so you can move readers and help them experience your character's fear and every other emotion with maximum emotional impact. First, I have a gift for you just for visiting my channel, a list of more than 30 filter words to cut from your story. When we need to show our character's greatest fear coming to pass, the last thing we want to use is words that weaken the reader's connection with the character. This free PDF contains more than 30 such words to eliminate from your story. Just click the link in the description or visit b2writercoaching.com/filter. That's the letter B, the number 2, writercoaching.com/filter to download your copy today. Not sure what filter words are and how to replace them? Check out this video linked above, and I'll also link it in the description. You'll also want to stick around till the end of this video so you won't miss this week's Power Up, a super practical action step you can use right now in the story you're working on. Fear is one of the most powerful tools for creating internal conflict for our characters. We all have fears, whether that's the fear of the monster in the closet or just the fear of getting in front of a camera and recording a video like this one. Some people fear public speaking or getting lost or spiders and snakes. Others have a fear of commitment in a relationship, a fear of losing someone they love, or a fear of succumbing to the same illness that has run in their family for generations. No matter what kind of story you write, your protagonist is going to have some kind of fear. Capitalizing on that can really ramp up the stakes and make your story a true page turner for readers. You may want to take notes or save this video to a playlist for future reference, because I'm going to be giving you, among other things, more than a dozen questions to ask yourself when brainstorming what your character's fear might be and how to use it to create the best impact for your story. While you're gathering a notebook or opening your favorite note-taking app, I just wanted to give you a little piece of trivia. This video is releasing on October 31st, 2022, and is coincidentally the 31st long video I've created. That's why I thought it might be a fun time to explore how to use fear in our stories. After 31 videos, I also wanted to thank everyone who has helped me keep this channel going. Thank you so much for your support, and special thanks to all my subscribers and those who have commented and asked questions on earlier videos. I appreciate every view, every comment, and of course every subscriber. Now, on to discussing fears. I've divided this video into 3 sections, the first of which is what I call defining the fear. This is going to be a list of questions you can use to figure out what your protagonist's greatest fear or even smaller fears might be. It's a good brainstorming tool to use when planning the stakes of your story as well as your protagonist's character arc. I'll put these questions on the screen, so feel free to take screenshots if that's easier for you than taking notes. Now here are the questions. What or who is your protagonist afraid to lose? What type of future does she fear? This could be a future for herself, a future for the world, or a future for someone she loves. What does she fear to gain? For example, this might be a fear of succumbing to an illness, like I mentioned earlier. It may seem odd to word as a gain, but all I mean is, what is your character afraid to get or to have? The illness is only one example. Maybe your character is afraid of gaining or getting a bad reputation. What does this character fear to become? Maybe your protagonist is afraid she'll become a bad person or a failure if she doesn't accomplish some task. What does this character fear she will cause to happen to other people or in general? Maybe the character is afraid that if he does a certain thing, he will cause the loss of a job or some catastrophic thing to happen for the world or someone he loves. What external forces terrify this character? Fire, snakes, bees, heights, earthquakes. What circumstances does she fear? Getting lost, being broke, failure, etc. What activities frighten her? Public speaking, driving in a big city, bungee jumping. And a bonus question that you can attach to any of the previous ones: why does your character fear this? Is it just an instinctive fear, like a fear of heights? Or did something in this character's past create that fear? Are you finding this helpful so far? If so, consider clicking the like button so YouTube will show this video to other writers like you. Now let's move on to using the fear, impact, and purpose of the character's fear on your story. For this section, I have not only a few questions, but also some tips for you. And I'll put those on the screen as well to make this easier. How does this fear affect your character's life? Is it crippling? Does it only surface under rare circumstances? Does your character manage this fear through simple avoidance? If your character just avoids the thing she's afraid of, then what impact might that have on the story? For example, a character who's afraid of bees may refuse to go on any kind of nature hikes or other outdoor excursions. Maybe this character's fear is so pronounced that he stays inside and refuses to go out, especially in the spring when bees are more prevalent. Or perhaps a character's fear of public speaking might interfere with his goal of getting a promotion at work, or may even get him fired. Or if this is a teenage character who's in high school and afraid of standing up in front of a crowd, then she might fail an assignment. How does your character's fear impact others? And for a couple tips, not only should we show that the character has this fear, but we need to show that character having to face that fear at one or more points in the story. The story could start out with the character in a situation that demonstrates having this fear, and the fear causes some kind of negative circumstance or situation to occur. In the movie The Princess Diaries, the main character is in debate class having to give her part of the debate, and she freezes and runs out of the classroom and is physically ill. Later in the climactic portion of the movie, the character is once again finding it necessary to speak to a crowd of people. But this time she chooses to do so. She has to face her fear during the climactic part because it's the only way she can resolve the conflict of the story. We can show this character facing his or her fear multiple times throughout the story. At least in the beginning or the first few, it should have a negative consequence so that we can show how the character grows and develops in the character arc throughout the story. Another thing to keep in mind about showing the character facing this fear multiple times is each occurrence needs to escalate in intensity or importance or the impact that the outcome will have on the character or other people. This is what we also call stakes. So the stakes need to be higher and higher each time your character has to face this fear. Another tip for using fear in your story is to make sure this fear or the impact of that fear will have some bearing on the plot and the character's arc. So consider what's at stake. What happens if your character does not overcome this fear? What happens if the character gives in and uses avoidance or some other method for getting out of facing the fear? And then what's the outcome if the character does face the fear? This will help you determine how this situation will impact your plot and the character's growth. The fear shouldn't just exist to create conflict and show that the character is scared or to try to make the reader scared. It should have an impact on the events of the plot that are coming up or on the character's growth. Remember to give that fear a result. Now, how do we write the fear? Keep in mind that fear is mostly about suspense. The shadow of the monster is always scarier than the appearance of the actual monster itself. Anticipation is way scarier than the event coming to pass. That's why I'm suggesting to show the character facing a certain fear in smaller doses and escalating situations throughout the story before the ultimate facing of the fear happens in the climax, if that fear is part of the character's climax. An excellent way to show how afraid the character is and help the reader experience the fear with the character is to use the same techniques we would use when creating suspense in our stories. For the 10 best ways to create suspense, check out this video linked above, and I'll also link it in the description. When writing scenes that contain fear, we can use cliffhangers and scene breaks to prolong the suspense as to the outcome of the frightening situation. We don't want to overdo it with cliffhangers and cutting a scene in half, so to speak, but these are very good techniques to use, especially at the ends of chapters. They create an automatic need for the reader to turn to the next page. Depending on what it is your character fears, you might want to consider investigating techniques horror writers use to instill fear in their audiences. And if you write horror, keep in mind that horror elements can still leave the reader with a satisfying ending if the story ends with hope. When showing your character's fear, be sure to use techniques that we use for showing instead of telling any emotion. Things like body language, internal physical responses for a viewpoint character specifically. If you'd like more suggestions on how to do this, be sure to stick around for the end of the video for this week's Power Up. Another way to help the reader experience the fear with your character is to make it seem impossible for this character to either overcome the fear or possibly even survive the fear coming to pass, depending on what that fear is. And make sure the fear always has a larger purpose in the story. It's not there just to create conflict or drama, but it has some kind of impact on the overall plot or the character arc, as we've said before. Facing that fear should have a direct impact on the events that are coming up so that the reader will feel the fear more deeply. If nothing's at stake, then there's no real investment for the reader. If you haven't done so yet, be sure to download your free list of filter words to cut from your story so you can make sure you're showing your character's fear instead of telling the reader that the character is afraid. Remember, just click the link in the description or visit b2writercoaching.com/filter. For this week's Power Up, once you've discovered what your character's fears are and decided where to include at least one of them, try using a combination of body language and internal physical responses to show the depth of your character's emotion or fear. To make this even more powerful, you can add setting details that either reflect or contrast the mood or the fear in the scene. Think of all the horror movies that use sweet, lighthearted music that you might expect to find around children, or even a child's laughter as the backdrop for a scene that's about to get really scary. Here are a few examples of body language and internal physical responses to fear from the Emotion Thesaurus, a writer's resource I've linked in the description. The character's lips or chin might tremble. Perhaps the character has cold sweats, increased body odor, the hair rises on the back of her neck, stiffening or hunched shoulders, or pulling the shoulder blades back in order to scrunch them up as if the character is afraid of whatever's behind her, keeping one's back to the wall, a darting gaze, stammering. These are more internal responses. Dizziness, weak legs or knees, shivering, clammy hands, a racing heart, inability to speak or rapid speech, like speaking too fast because the character is nervous or afraid. This is especially handy for a character who's afraid of public speaking. Sensitivity to touch, holding one's breath, etc. I hope you find these helpful. For more tips on how to show fear and other emotions, check out the Emotion Thesaurus linked in the description. And since suspense plays such a vital role in helping readers experience your protagonist's fear with her, check out this video on the 10 best ways to ramp up the suspense in your story. And let's power up your storytelling.